is Time's Drive. I'm Joel Pereira and this behind me is a Toyota Innova. It's a car you're all familiar with. Surely you've been ferried around in one or at least rented one for a family outing. It's a car that anyone would want. It's got space, it's got a decent engine and air conditioning. Anyone who has a large family to transport would love a car like this. But what if you're not anyone? What if you're rich? What if you need a car that more befits your station, Mr. Moneybags? The problem is, what if you're looking for a car, a premium car with space for more than 4 people? You're always going to have to look towards an SUV, either the Q7 or the X5 or even the Mercedes ML320. But what if you don't really want an SUV? What if what you want is an MPV but with premium branding? Does that mean that you're doomed to a lowly Toyota? Oh God, no. Because Mercedes have added to their alphabet soup of letters and numbers and launched the R350, the MPV for the truly loaded.
Let's do it.
Now, I've driven a lot of Mercedes cars, and from where I am sitting, my favorite place, behind the steering wheel, everything seems normal enough till you look at a reflection of yourself in a store window and realize that what you're driving is essentially a large people hauler, a family car, but with a 3-point star. So what you've got under the hood is a 3.5 litre V petrol that's putting out 272 bhp and 356 Newton meters of torque. Sounds fine, but let's just take those numbers into perspective. This is a massive car, weighing in at a tarmac tearing, asphalt sundering 2.2 tons. You'd think that with this kind of weight, the R-Class would move like a snail crossing a salt pan, but that's not what happens. Hit the gas and hit it hard, and what happens is that the R-Class will go from a 0 to 100 in about 9 seconds with the 7-speed 7G-tronic transmission going through the gears with style. Like we said earlier, this might be a family car, but it is a Mercedes, so the engine is as smooth as silk and is easy to throttle from any speed. However, if you do want even more of a buzz, you could always engage the paddle shifters, but for a vehicle like this, they seem a little redundant. Wives and children don't always want to be thrown in the back of their seats now, do they?
Come on, come on. Come on, come on. Come on, come on.
What does seem a little weird though is the choice of engine. This is not an inexpensive car to buy. Add to that, you've got to deal with the cost of petrol. And the R-Class isn't exactly a cheap car to run. If you're expecting any kind of decent mileage on this thing, I have one word to say: don't. It does seem odd that the brass down at Mercedes chose to release the R-Class in India with a petrol engine when they do have quite a few decent diesel engines to choose from. What works for the R-Class though is the ride. This is one comfortable automobile. You've got the heavy chassis, the super wide 255 tires and the Airmatic air suspension that pretty much destroys everything that comes in its path. Since the wheelbase is so long and the R is so heavy, you're not getting any pitch, and very little of the rubble-strewn surfaces we call roads make it into the cabin. What suffers though is the handling. Already regular Mercedes passenger cars have a bit of reputation for being a little plush, but trying to drive the R-Class hard is like trying to enter the Kentucky Derby on an elephant. This is a very large car, like something you'd see on a battlefield. However, since this is a family car that resembles a tank, I can't imagine why anyone would try to carve corners in this thing. When you do get into the rear passenger area of the R-Class, you can almost read the brief given to the engineers who were designing this car. We need to transport our pampered customers in the most comfortable manner possible. So make it happen. And they have. Let me reiterate again, this is a long, wide car, longer and wider than even that other German behemoth, the Audi Q7. So you know what I'm talking about. Space is used effectively and there's plenty for all. This is a 7-seater and we all know the 7-seater compromise. Fun for the front 2 rows, torture for the back seat. But that's not true with the R-Class. Sure, the mid-row is very comfy, but then the real test is the last. Normally doomed to holding children and midgets if you know any. However, in the R, the last row is actually usable, and even getting to that last row does not demand any kind of tantric yoga moves. You've also got an entire shoe factory's worth of creamy leather and AC vents and cup holders for every single passenger in this car, just in case all 7 passengers wanted to drink a cup of coffee on a hot day at the same time. Add to that the entertainment system which will keep everyone occupied, dual screens and multiple points of connectivity. And then there's the Harman Kardon Pro Logic surround sound audio system that's really right out of the top drawer. So who do we think is going to buy this car? Mercedes is calling it the Royal Family Sedan, and so it is. And if you really need to move more than 7 people around in comfort and absolute luxury, there really is nothing else. But think about it, if you're a businessman, someone who travels a lot and with other people, suddenly the R-Class seems like an interesting bargain. It's huge, sure, but does not have the ostentation of an SUV. And if you're willing to sacrifice the poshness of an S-Class while getting more space and great ride, and added ground clearance for when the roads are not as good, the R-Class becomes the perfect car. But that's only if you have 65 lakh rupees to spend. We're moving now from the Mercedes R-Class to all the news from Planet Auto.
Sales figures of some car companies haven't been as bountiful as they have been these past couple of months. Even though there were increases in sales over the same period as last year, reported increases were marginal. Multiple valid reasons were cited. The hike in interest rates and the increase in fuel prices were the primary reasons why Joe Public stayed away from car showrooms. Let's begin with Hyundai. Domestic sales increased by a marginal 2% over the same period of time last year, with the company selling 47,766 cars, over 46,808 cars sold over last year. The real driver for Hyundai numbers seems to be the just launched Verna. Hyundai claims that they've received about 12,000 bookings for the car already. General Motors too saw only a marginal increase in sales, a reported jump of just 1.3%, selling 8,329 units in May 2011, over 8,225 units sold in May 2010. The big seller for GM was the small car Spark at 3,023 units, followed by the Beat at 2,144 units, with the Cruise at 659. Nissan had a better May, with 1,566 units of the Micra being sold in India against 1,198 units of the Micra being sold last month. Honda too saw sizable positive growth of almost 16%, selling 2,334 units in May 2011 over 2,012 units in the same time last year. Seller for Honda was the City, 1,828 cars sold. Toyota saw a sales increase of almost 24% from May 2011, selling 7,470 units, with the Etios collecting the biggest share at 3,412 cars sold. The increase in sales came at a time when Toyota's manufacturing was suspended by almost 70% due to earthquakes in Japan. The real star of the month of May, however, is Volkswagen. They've registered a huge jump in sales over May 2010 of almost 244%. They've performed so well that the sales in January to May period of 2011, 33,958 cars have overtaken total sales of last year. VW sales in May 11 clocks at 6,185 vehicles, with the Polo being the real performer at 3,486 units sold.